Welcome back, Facebookers. I know what you're thinking. Check these babies out. So here's the problem. Well, aside from being 46 years old, the race book that I have, which, was, never mind. The print is so small, so I had to go down to Carl's and give me some readers yesterday, and,
Is that the first pair of cheaters you've ever picked up?
No, I had another pair. I couldn't find them, so I had to go down there and buy a new pair. We're not starting this podcast.
No, that's right.
We're just talking to you guys. But I love Carl's. They have just the biggest smorgasbord of shit that you can imagine. But their reader selection or cheaters. Wait, we shouldn't use that word. The readers is they're terrible. And here we are. I mean, look at this. Hey, what's up? I don't need them if I look at my computer, if I'm looking at you.
The book that you have for the race director is the race Bible.
It's
tight.
I mean, it's it's just real little, and I wanted it to be accurate with the listeners and the viewers, so I had to. Anyways, let's start this podcast. Okay, shall we?
Yeah.
Did I just go?
Just go.
Oh, I need my ear things.
Yep.
Sorry, I went to this, for those of you who follow me on, we'll talk about it on the podcast. I'm a little...
You should talk about your ride yesterday, too.
I'm a little crispy today.
What does that mean, crispy?
Hungover.
Oh, you had a party last night.
Yeah, okay, let's do this. Am I on? Oh, turn me up.
You are.
Okay. Hey, everybody, welcome back to... Why don't we start over?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, everybody, all you people in England... Welcome back to the Stages Podcast, talking about Stage 3. I only say welcome back to all you people in England because it's crazy now with social media. You get all of this data about people. Like, we know, it's a little weird, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We know how old you are. We know where you live. We know how long on Facebook Live you stayed tuned in. And by the way, I don't care if you live where you live. Thank you for tuning in. But one of the stats that just blew me away was our biggest audience is in England,
which I wouldn't have guessed.
No.
I understand, a lot of the hype and the reason that England's more excited, but of course I would have thought that U.S. would be our biggest audience.
Clearly.
And not even
Come on, America. Tomorrow's your birthday. Start paying attention.
That's right.
So anyway, Stage 3, we go from Verviers in Belgium, just outside of Liège, to Longwy in France. Interesting stat.
Through Luxembourg.
Through 3 countries.
Yeah.
And they haven't done that since 2009. 212K, we talked about it yesterday, super lumpy day. And it didn't, if you look at the profile, which you probably saw on TV plenty of times, it just looked like a saw blade. And days like that, well, 2 things. One, when it's up and down like that, it means that it's not straight. And so, typically, the roads are twisty and curvy, and it was cool to watch. And big shout out to our local hero, Nate Brown, Austin, Texas boy, for getting in the break and getting a bunch of KOM points. Probably stole that jersey from his Flock of Seagulls teammate Taylor Phinney.
But let's come back to Nate.
We'll get back to that. But I want to talk about me again for a second. Aside from the fact that I'm but I'm just a little bit nicked up from last night. I went to a baby shower, and it was the weirdest baby shower that I've ever been to in my life. We can talk about that later. But when I talk about me, 2 for 2. Called it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Called it today. It's really not it's not a big deal because everybody picked Peter Sagan, and he didn't disappoint.
Well, you picked him, and you were right. But for those who have not seen it yet, and the highlights of his sprint are going to be all over the internet today.
Yeah.
That sprint was amazing. I didn't know as much about the guy as you do, and everybody's been talking about how strong he is and how this course was set up for him. And I've watched thousands of professional sprints in my life.
Yep.
That was one of the most unique sprints I've ever seen. I've never seen a sprinter like that go to the front and look like he's soft pedaling and just looking around at everybody, almost like a track sprint. Like, are you going to go? Who's in?
That's uphill.
And he was daring them. And then, as they take off, Sagan's foot comes out of the clip.
Yep.
For most people, that's it. You're done.
Right.
It's over, period.
Well, for most people, if that happens, you're on the ground. It's very hard to when you're under full power, your foot comes out. Most people, you need your foot in the pedal to stabilize everything that's going on, and most people end up on the ground. I will say, if this was an uphill sprint, so I don't know exactly how fast they were going, but let's just say it was probably 10 or 15 miles an hour slower than a flat sprint.
Mm-hmm.
If that happens in a flat sprint, nobody keeps it up, not even Peter Sagan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a little lucky that it was uphill, and for him too. You kind of got to say, well, why did it come out? Typically, that would only happen if your cleats are worn down a bit. But he should probably check that. I mean, that would not be good to have happen, as I said, in a flat, super fast sprint.
And, Richie Porte was in there mixing it up, too. I mean, Sagan was amazing, but Richie went too early.
Yep.
I don't know what his plan was there. I mean, we were all watching it going, too early, too early. It even looked too early when Sagan went, and then it was Matthews nipping at his heels right at the end.
If the finish line, which it's not, it's like in golf, you hit a bad shot and you put it 2 feet from the hole, that you tell your buddies, well, there's no video on the scorecard. But if that finish line's 50 yards farther down the road, he loses the race. Matthews closed a lot of, big gap in the last, 100 meters, but
it's indicative of who's strong, right?
That's why I made a note. I mean, as I look through these results, I see some interesting things. I see, first of all, we in stage 1 there were people I wrote down disappointers, channeling my inner George W. But there were the people that disappointed, whether it's Dan Martin or Richie Porte or Jacob Fuglsang, who won the Dauphiné Libre 2 weeks ago. They were there, right? They're in the top. So you had, Dan Martin in 3rd. By the way, gets back 2 seconds. They gapped those guys off. Everything from 5th down loses time. Loses 2 seconds. So Dan Martin 3rd, Fuglsang 7th. You had guys that came back. Richie Porte right up there. So good opportunity for them to test the legs a little bit. Maybe not so much. Not that it's going to get, these time gaps are so minimal it doesn't really matter. But I think for their confidence, tomorrow, easier day, but in 2 days we have an uphill finish. So for them, if I'm Richie Porte, I'm thinking I felt pretty good today, and I looked good, and I looked strong, and he did look strong. I was like, damn, is this guy trying to win the race today? And
you start to wonder if he can make up the 40-some seconds on some sort of uphill finish.
Well, yeah,
it's a lot. I know.
This is the Tour de France, right? There's a lot of things can happen. He looked good. I was impressed.
And there was a quick blurb about it, and it's something to keep an eye on. Sky has been doing a lot of work, and they're carrying the yellow jersey, and it's not their GC contender. It's not their lead guy.
Right.
Probably wanting to let that go. Maybe tomorrow.
They I don't know. I mean, they have 1st and 2nd in the GC now, right? You have Geraint Thomas 1st, and Chris Froome is now in 2nd place, 12 seconds down. So in 2 days from now, they're going to have to control the race.
They're doing all the work anyway.
Yeah, they're gonna be at the front. And by the way, Geraint Thomas looks good. Like, if this guy, and people talk about it all the time, if he's on another team, it makes this bike race a lot more interesting. And of course, he's one of the pillars and stalwarts of that team. But if he's on another team, he's a damn good rider, and he's going to be up there. And so we'll regardless, they're going to have to support the race and carry the race tomorrow and the next day.
Why don't you break that down for everybody, what that means when you're defending the yellows. You hear them talk about that a lot. They're out there, the team, they're working, they're defending the yellow. You hear those leaders give thanks to their team after the race. If they're good, they give thanks to the team. But what does that mean? Explain to the lay person what that, not just what it means tactically, but what it means physically. To defend the jersey.
Yeah, it's they have the yellow jersey. Sky has the yellow jersey, but these days they're getting a lot of help. In fact, in watching the coverage, rarely did they have a guy on the front. You had all of these riders, teams that wanted to win today. So you had Michael Matthews, you had Greg Van Avermaet, you had Philippe Gilbert. So you had Quick Step on the front, you had BMC on the front, you had Sunweb on the front.
So the Sky guys weren't having to work as hard as they could.
No, there's too much other interest for these other teams just to get a stage win.
Right.
So
they in the sprint.
Yeah, they get they get a pass, and that's very common. I mean, that's a perfect scenario for them.
Just so people can better understand this, had that break, the break again was just right off the front, in control, like we talked about yesterday. No one's worried about it. If that break starts to get away and is a real threat, is that, and I'm talking about defending the jersey, is that when everyone goes, hey, Sky, that's your jersey to defend, right, and then those guys go to the front?
Then they do not go to the front. Then they say, you know what, Nate Brown in the breakaway, you can have the yellow jersey.
And
Merry Christmas.
Right, because it's just a short term. It's like a short gift.
They truly let it go.
Okay.
And two, the politics of we talked about this in the previous show, the politics of a move like, let's just say hypothetically that happened. Here's the political situation, right? If I'm Dave Brailsford running Team Sky, and let's just say that Nate Brown, our homeboy, is the top ranked GC rider in the break, and I'm Brailsford, I go to Nate Brown's director, Charlie Wielius, and I say, you guys are gonna have the jersey, right? And it's a favor. Now, when people do favors, you know what they want?
They want a favor back.
They want a favor in return.
You're going to help us on
and
a stage
win.
because they can get a stage win. They look good.
Well, they get the jersey. Or
it all looks good.
If that were to happen, now there was no chance that was going to happen today because you had, these riders and these teams that clearly thought they could win.
No, wait, this is interesting, and this is the stuff that I don't think people understand, and the TV commentators don't break down for you. Let's talk about what you were just describing. Sky decides they'll let the jersey go. It's a favor, and somebody else gets to wear yellow. They get the stage win. It's good for their team, their sponsors. It's a great day. It's a great accomplishment in the tour. Really physically, how do those deals go down? I mean, is it a phone call from car to car? Is it the riders talking in the peloton? How is that? And I say deals. How are those favors being executed?
We'll call it an arrangement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how does it physically happen?
I don't know. It's been a while since I was in that situation. Probably, I'm sure all these guys have everybody's number. You could either call them or you could pull up beside them in the team car. Just have a conversation. That would be pretty obvious if you saw that. But and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I think, again, it's cycling is, you have 200 guys, and you're either one rider or one team of 9 guys. You can't control this beast for 3 weeks. Like, you have to find friends and allies. And by the way, on day 3, your ally, on day 4, you're out. I mean, you can be allies and enemy. It doesn't matter. It changes literally by the hour. And so, and this is a sport where, nobody gives a shit. They're totally ruthless.
That'd be a fun thing, and I'm going to hold you to it to keep an eye on that. If we do see a stage ends with somebody getting a favor, we'll call it that, we'll point that out. Because that's a dynamic of the tour that I think a lot of people don't understand.
We'll see it. I think it goes on less and less. I mean, back in the day, those arrangements were.
They would pull over and have a glass of wine and talk about it.
No, but there would be another transaction taking place. I don't know that really happens anymore.
Okay.
But having said that, I don't know because I'm not. You and me are sitting here in Aspen in the Airstream studio. So what the hell?
Trailer life.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on.
This is a really cute story. So JB has this kick-ass Airstream that he's modified to be a studio. You people on Facebook can see it. So yesterday he came by the house. We were just talking about stuff, and my little guy Max, the 8-year-old.
Oh man.
He says, "Hey."
I was walking away and I was on the street.
Yeah. He goes, "Hey, is that your trailer over there?"
And he goes, "Are you sleeping in it?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Yeah, pretty cool, huh?" And he goes, "No,
not really."
No, not really. And he walked inside. That kid's got some attitude.
What a punk.
Oh my gosh.
He walked back into his little bunk room and was like.
And I just had my head down, walking down the street to my trailer.
Yeah. Shout out to Pam Alexander, our landlord, letting us.
Oh my gosh.
Letting us park this baby here. Pam, thank you.
I know. It's it's incredible. We wanted to have this studio to work from and cover this and have a private place and all this good equipment to use, and it's harder than you think to find a place to put a trailer in this town.
It took months. Hey, while we're talking about the day, I was going to say I'm surprised. I shouldn't. I really shouldn't be surprised. But I am. I'm just baffled that this Chris Froome or Team Sky skin suit issue is still such a controversy. And it's one thing, to look at the cover of L'Equipe today. So here, L'Equipe is the main sports paper in France. It's owned by the same organization that owns the Tour de France, ASO. Not my favorite people in the world. But here's the cover of L'Equipe today with all the other things going on in the world of sports.
Yeah.
Is the issue about...
It's a picture from the opening time
trial.
That's
a picture from yesterday, but the story is about the modified skin suit from stage 1.
Yeah.
And again, this story originates with Francis Dejeux and Frédéric Grappa and Marc Madio and just the biggest bunch of babies ever. I can't take it. I can't believe this is a story.
It's, we could probably do an entire newly themed podcast about the state of media and how they're looking for controversy. And it's not just in cycling. You see it in everything. People don't take the time to read the entire article. By the way, you're a guy who reads the entire paper cover to cover. We've talked about this.
That's right.
You read the whole story. Most people today do not read the story. They read the headline, and that's all the information they need. They accept that information, and they go with it. Using this as an example, again and again and again, they see the headline of, are these jerseys illegal?
Yeah.
They just take that information and go, oh, yeah, Sky had illegal jerseys, without doing any research, any investigation on their own, reading follow-up articles that don't pick up the steam. That is how media is working.
But I think also, too, this race is, we've had some exciting moments, but this is always the case in the Tour. This first week, look, there are days, and there will be many more days in the next, 2.5 weeks where it's boring. There's nothing to write about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty interesting. It's content. It's good content that Peter Sagan pulled his foot out today.
Mm-hmm.
But so they have to find these things when the race is not in the mountains and there's not a time trial and there's not any drama, so to speak. They have to generate a little drama, and this is that.
Well, sometimes you have to remind yourself of why this outrageous, incredibly demanding event started.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to sell papers.
Right. It was a stunt.
It was a stunt, and people thought it couldn't be done, and these guys were doing something so unbelievable, and it was the coverage in the papers. And so, you know what I mean? There's a heritage to the sensationalism of it, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know until today, until I'm sitting there watching with Lance, why that jersey is yellow.
Right.
Why that's the color of choice for the Tour de France.
Well, the paper that, and for the layperson at home, a lot of you cycling fans know this story, I'm sure, but the paper that we just, if you're listening at home, you didn't see it, but on Facebook Live we showed it. The main sports paper in France is L'Equipe. That paper used to be called Leadout, L'Auto, and it was printed on yellow paper. So the owner of the paper was trying to get, just like today, trying to get some eyeballs, some views, right, some clicks.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought, let's do something really outlandish. What if I got a bunch of guys to ride their bikes around France and call it the Tour de France? Now, the crazy thing is back then, there were 5 stages. They had one gear.
And that was considered over the top.
Well, they still rode the same distance. So they rode the same distance as the boys ride today, but they did it in 5 days.
I did not know that.
How crazy is that shit? With maybe one gear, I don't remember. I don't remember. Yeah, like I was there, but I don't know exactly. I know at some point they had 2 gears. They could turn the wheel around when they got in the mountains, and it gave them an easier gear. But I mean, and boys were getting on trains. Boys were they would take cork and put fishing string through it, and they would have it in their teeth, and somebody would be up ahead, pull. I mean, they did everything. You think we cut corners in my generation? These some bitches were cutting corners.
I didn't know it was the same miles, 5 stages.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking 500, 600 kilometer days.
Some of the same mountain passes?
Yep. I mean, the imagery from back then is is epic. And but anyways, the paper was printed on yellow paper, and so that's how you got to, you know, the jersey became the yellow jersey. And by the way, the second biggest race in the world is the Tour of Italy. The big sports paper in Italy is La Gazzetta dello Sport, printed on pink paper, hence the reason that the leader's jersey at the Giro is pink.
There you go.
Yeah.
Y'all learned something today.
Yeah.
I know we've got a lot of new people, especially popping in on Facebook. And so sometimes we may go down some things that, if you've been following the Tour forever, it may be very obvious to you, but there's some people who are so new to this and they're like, I didn't know that. And they're getting very engaged in it. I've talked to several people since we started this going, you know what, you guys are sharing, and Lance is sharing so many insider things that I'm enjoying watching it better. Because it is like any sport, the more you understand the intricacies, yep, and you know, the things that are unique about it, the more you're going to enjoy it. Yeah. We got to see another American for a little bit today. Tell us more about Nate Brown.
So Nate Brown he's originally from Memphis. He now resides in Austin. He was like Taylor Phinney and like Lawson Craddock and a few others. He was on this development team that I started in 2008, 2009, which was the Trek Livestrong team, which has now morphed itself into the Action Cycling Team, AXEON, which is led by Axel Merckx, who was the director back in the day. But Nate is, and by the way, too, his younger brother, Johnny Brown, also lives in Austin, a great young rider who's on Axel's team. Nate's a kid that, you know, I think he was surprised to be selected for the Tour. You know, I trained with him quite a lot in the off season. He never had the Tour de France on his radar, and so for him to get the call up, the big show, right, the Tour, and to animate the race like he did today, pretty cool, cool. And he's just the sweetest kid. He grew up in a cycling family. His dad rides a lot. His dad is a pilot for Delta Airlines. Does all the big long haul flights out of Memphis. But Nate and his brother Johnny, both just great kids, and awesome to see him up there and be punchy, be aggressive. And I mean that longer Cat 3 climb that he took the most points on and to get the jersey was a big attack over the Katusha rider.
I'm happy to see it, because when the Tour was beginning, even prior to it beginning, people are going, where are the Americans? Americans aren't strong in here. And here we are, just stage 3. We've gotten a good look at a couple of them. That's been kind of nice and a surprise to everybody. I will share this just for fun, because Taylor Phinney, who we got a good look at the other day, is doing interviews, and man, is he interested.
Well, we clearly didn't get to look at him like we're about to hear. This is a different look.
Listen to this quick little interview with Taylor talking about getting King of the Mountains. And so, you know, that's the polka dot jersey, and he picked up some points the other day by going out in a break. But listen to this interview.
Did you wake up this morning thinking you'd end up in the polka dot?
Man, honestly, I finished the time trial yesterday. We went back to the hotel. I took a shower. I was completely naked sitting in my room. And Charlie Wigelius, the director, comes in and just sits down next to me. And I'm, you know, kind of like, hey man. And he's like, hey, how do you feel about going for the polka dot jersey? And I was like, bro, I'm completely naked. Like, I haven't even thought about what clothes I'm going to wear. So kind of planted that seed. And
you should do that more often.
Yeah, maybe that's like a new psychology thing, is get people when they're naked, at their most vulnerable.
It worked out. Your parents were at the start today, is that right?
Yeah, my parents are here.
Yeah, that must have been good. And did it spur you on a bit?
Yeah, my parents are here. Actually, my longtime nanny is here from when I was a kid. I don't still have a nanny.
You need one.
I'm sure. But yeah, I've just been feeling the love, you know. I'm really excited to be at the Tour de France in this capacity. I've spent a lot of time watching the Tour de France, and I can tell you it's just another bike race, but it's insane.
Yeah, it's not.
And it feels a lot like a dream, which is kind of all you're really looking for in your professional
How long
life.
does this go on for?
That's it.
Okay.
That has to be weed-induced. That sounds like all my pot-smoking friends.
Yeah, probably not a good idea during the Tour de France. You know, we are in a state where that is legal, so I guess theoretically you could could get away with that.
I got to give some credit though. I did. That was from SBS Central Cycling out of Australia.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, Mike. We can't spend a lot of time talking about this, but surely Taylor has a roommate. Like, like, I hope he doesn't just sit around, like, just with it all going out, hanging out, and then the roommate. Anyways.
Something else that stood out to me today that I saw you react, Lance. It was a lumpy ride, as you call it. They were kind of almost always going up or down.
Yep.
Not a huge mountain descents or anything like that, but some pretty fast ones. And a lot of the guys were squatted down way over the bars. And let me try to just
over the top tube.
Over the top tube, to where their chin is, you can't even see the handlebars below you. They're laying down on the top tube pretty much. And you looked at it kind of funny, like, really?
Well, Chris Froome popularized this last year when he went away on this downhill, basically sitting on the top tube and still pedaling. Like
it's when they were still pedaling was what threw you off.
Yeah, I'd be too. First of all, I don't think at this point in my life I could actually do that with the state of my back and how not limber I am. But yeah, I mean it's you see that in cycling. There's these little trends and styles that people try to borrow and adopt. So I mean I think, but to go back to the day, this was not an easy day, and you saw it at the end of the finish when guys are just
getting spit
you know
off
you have it. You see, if you looked at the peloton, you're like, this okay, they're all together, but then people are just getting spit out. I mean, that was a tough. The boys will be tired tomorrow. That one is going to leave a mark on a lot of guys. And by the way, a lot of these guys, like we saw Mark Renshaw coming back, right? There's no need for Mark Renshaw to fight and stay in the front and use all that energy when he knows tomorrow is a perfect day for Mark Cavendish. And so just sit up, lose a minute or two, save the legs, get ready for tomorrow. I think that's perfectly acceptable.
If you don't mind taking just a little bit of time and explaining some climbing categories, and I know we'll get more into that as we go, as they get into the mountains, but as I was looking at the stage profile, there were some 3-4 category climbs, and the peak of them was roughly the same height. So I'm sure there's a different way of breaking down a 3 versus a 4 climb. Yeah,
it's all based on the distance. It's not based on the elevation, right?
Which is what a lot of people think.
It's not based on the highest elevation. It's based on the distance of the climb and the steepness of the climb. So for those of you who don't know, not the easiest, but the lowest categorized climb is a Cat 4, and then you have Cat 3, Cat 2, Cat 1. Cat 2s start to be longer and harder. Well, 1 is a very, very difficult climb, and then you have HC, which is horror category, which means above category, right? So
it's like 11 in Spinal Tap.
Yeah, yeah, and so those are the monuments of the sport, the Alpe d'Huez, the Ventoux, the Galibier, things like that, where you see an HC climb and it's hard, but that's early in the race. The points for a category 4 are very low. I mean, look, we're talking about, Nate Brown has the jersey with 3 or 4 points. Whereas, and I should know this, but the points for an HC climb are huge. Mm-hmm. So as the race goes on, you see, not to discredit the competition for the polka dot jersey now, but these guys that typically get that jersey this early, they're opportunists. So they go on the breaks. As the race goes on, a true climber or a truer climber, although it's to be debated, will be the ones getting those points.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking with that. Although we've been not thinking we had much to talk about with American riders. We've already had Taylor Phinney and then Nate Brown 2 days apart sharing the polka dot jersey. It gives us something to talk about, but over the long haul, these are probably not the guys to hang on to that.
Probably not, but it doesn't matter. They had an objective as a team, Cannondale Drapac. They may not feel like they have great hopes for the overall, or may not have stages that totally suit them for stage victories. So you got to do something. You got to get in the break, show off the sponsors, and if you can, poach some points by being an opportunist, hey, more power to you.
Do you want to take a couple questions and then we'll look at tomorrow's?
Yeah, we've been getting let's.
We're bombarded with
great
emails,
comments, and thank you for that, and a bunch of great questions. And we thought, I think we should. We don't have to do it every day, but maybe some of these days we'll take some questions. We got some good ones today, so let's pick one.
We are going to get to a lot of them. We've had so much excitement in the first 2 days with all the bad weather. But we're going to do more and more of this. Here is a question. Marcel Kittle became the first rider to win a stage on a bike with disc brakes.
Yeah, good.
What are your thoughts about discs in the peloton? And would you have selected disc over traditional rims?
Well, so just for the record,
traditional brakes.
Yeah. So I've been very outspoken about this, and I feel very strongly that every rider in the Tour de France, every rider in the professional peloton, I don't care what race it is, should be on disc brakes. And not only should they now, but it's a certainty. It's a fact. It will happen. And they work a lot better when it's dry, and when it's wet, they work much better. Now, there's been some controversy as we try to phase in disc brakes. You know, look, you have an exposed disc that when you're braking hard, it heats up. So if there's a big, massive pileup, you know, if that disc is coming at you and you're on the ground, it could cut you.
It's like a saw blade.
It could be pretty serious. Now, to me, I look at that, I'm like, my KTM motorcycle, I have disc brakes on it, and I have a cover on it. You know, there's a carbon cover over. There's a solution there. I think the most important thing is, well, number one, they work a hell of a lot better. And number two, and this is the most important thing, and this is where the UCI are complete dipshits when it comes to this. This sport is largely supported by the industry now. So in the day, you had big corporations. Now, who supports this sport? It's the Cannondales, it's the Specialized, it's the Treks, it's the Canyons. These people are putting hundreds of millions of dollars into this sport. You have to work with those people that are funding your sport. So, you know, if you're a fan at home, imagine if everybody in the race had disc brakes. And you got a bike 2 years ago that has traditional caliper brakes.
I'm going to feel like my bike's
you're sitting there going, like, oh,
I need an update.
I gotta get a new bike. And it's not, disc brakes isn't the kind of thing where you can take an old bike and put disc brakes on it. You have to get a whole new bike. The bike is engineered different, built differently. Everything's different. So it turns over the entire inventory. And so I'm just like, I don't get it. And I'm glad that we had our first stage one with disc brakes. I personally, that's all I ride is disc brakes. I do have a Cannondale at home that's got calipers, but all my other bikes have disc brakes. And I love it.
But they should be on it. And it's funny, too, as we were watching that and seeing that question and talking about it, Dave Bulge, who has been in the role of a mechanic, soigneur, all that thing, goes, what a pain in the ass not having neutral wheels for everybody. You have to grab a different wheel.
Well, there has to be some uniformity, all right? So whether it's neutral support or whether it's within a team, obviously you have to be able to exchange, do a wheel change. Or even if it's neutral support, which typically is a bad wheel change, it's got to fit in so that it's just a standard size. That's not, all of this is easy to do. And help, the governing body, the UCI, should be helping the people who are paying for the sport. And trust me, if that entire peloton's rocking disc brakes, man, John Doe in Des Moines going, God, I guess I got to get a new bike. And he's going to go.
That's true. I was watching today, and I think I'm ready to ditch my down tube shifters.
There you go. Yeah.
It's time for an upgrade.
Yeah.
Get them right there on the brakes.
Index shifting. Some smooth, hot thing.
That was a great question from Rich. Thank you very much. One more question here real quick.
Let's do it.
I think it's very relevant because we got a good look at Peter Sagan today. It says, what keeps someone like Peter Sagan from using someone else's lead-out train? Is that bad form, or is it too hard to get behind someone else's train and use that for a finish?
No.
That is from Mike Phillips out of California.
Yep, totally acceptable. I mean, if you don't have, if whoever you are, it doesn't matter if it's Peter Sagan or anybody, if you don't have your train, then you have to just sort of, you got to mooch. Right? You got to. I think it's fine to just, if you have the stones to get in that line, right? Because it's not easy to physically elbow your way in there. Once you get in, unless you're trying to get in the middle of somebody else's train, that would be bad for them. But if you're on the back end of it, let's say that Quick Step has their train going, and they're leading this thing out for Marshall Kittle, which you're going to see tomorrow. Whoever gets Kittle's wheel, that's the wheel you want.
That's gold, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you tried to interrupt,
it's just hard to get it.
Right. If you wanted to jump into the middle, you're going to get your ass chewed.
Oh no!
And they're going to be like, "What the f are you doing?"
No, you can't get in the middle.
But we saw it today with Sagan. It was a slightly, well, I don't know, slightly, maybe it was a very uphill sprint, and it looked like you were talking about yesterday, you don't always get to see that helicopter view. Looked like he was going to get blocked out up against the barriers, and this is what's so cool about sprinters when they're doing their thing. Sagan rode up halfway on this guy, couldn't get through, reached over and just said, "Move over, buddy."
What he did was Liggett called. He said, "Oh no, Peter Sagan's boxed in." I said, "Yeah, watch this." And he didn't even take his hands off the bars. He got close enough to him, and it was just the elbow on the dude's ass, like,
"Move over,
get out the way,
let the big boys in."
And even if that's where etiquette and things like that guy doesn't have to get out of the way. In fact, he could move more to the right.
Yeah.
And if you've got a half a bike in front of somebody, you got the upper hand. And so, but Sagan, I think he's obviously very well respected and very well liked. He just gives them a little something like, "Hey, Pete's coming through," and the dude moved over.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah.
There was no debate over that. Good question, Mike. I'm gonna throw out one more real quick. Real quick. They say with Valverde out, do you think we'll see Quintana and Porte working together? You've been talking about friendships, alliances, politics. Could those two help each other out? And that's from Waz and Adelaide.
Every day. There's always. I said it earlier. There are alliances and arrangements and friendships and not deals, but every day. And so that's, the interesting thing becomes when you have guys that are perhaps personal friends, right? So you have a Richie Porte and a Chris Froome who are very close personal friends, but now on different teams. That probably takes precedent for some guys. It wouldn't take precedent for me. I mean, I always told the boys, you can talk to your friends in 3 weeks. No friends here. We got no friends for 3 weeks. We're going to talk to each other. And so, but the sport seems a friendlier place now. But yeah, you'll see it. We'll be able to watch it real time.
All right, send those comments to stages@wedosport.com, WEDU sport.com, and have your friends subscribe to the podcast. Or if you're not getting it, I know a lot of you are watching this on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, stagespodcast.com. If you want to go get all the links for the RSS feed. What are we going to look at tomorrow? What can we expect?
Well, no, tomorrow, look, it's interesting. It's another lumpy day. This is not as lumpy as today, but I think the most interesting thing about tomorrow is, like these sprint stages, is the final. And the only thing I see two things about tomorrow's final into Vittel. So the cool thing about Vittel is it's the #1 spa destination in France. You and I ought to be there. And if you watch in the race, you see a lot of the banners, like the 20K to go, 15K to go. The big sign across it is Vittel.
I never knew what that was.
Well, that's water.
Spa?
It's like, no, it's water.
Oh, that's the Vittel.
Yeah, so it's all this mineral water that's made there. So one of the big sponsors of the race actually is named after this town where the race is going tomorrow. But the interesting thing about the finish is two things. One is it's not a flat sprint. I got it at about 2%. 2% is they're going to be going, but it's not going to be a fast sprint. It's going to be a hard sprint. And so, if I had to try to go 3 for 3, I mean, I still think a guy like Kittle, but then you go to a guy like Christoph from Katusha, a power guy, a classics guy. It's going to be a tough sprint. The second thing that's interesting is it's not a straight run in. This is a pretty complicated finish. With 3K to go, you still have 3 or 4 corners. They even noted here on the book, sharp left-hand bend, which is around a roundabout that you.
Which is where
actually it's a sharp right-hander, but
as you've shared with us, that's where GC contenders don't want to get caught behind.
You don't want to get gapped off. You got to stay up front. There will be gaps tomorrow, I think. And so
when it's those technical turns, there could be an accident. Big gap happens. You're in trouble.
Yep. And so power sprint. Maybe a guy like Cavendish. I got a text yesterday from TJ Van Gardner. I actually got 2 messages yesterday. One from George Hincapie and one from TJ, both criticizing me for my pick of Peter Sagan. They said, no way, really? Greg Van Avermaet or Philippe Gilbert. And I said, nope, it's too late. The podcast's already gone out. I'm sticking with my man. And but TJ's pick for tomorrow was Cav. That's his pick for tomorrow. Mark Cavendish.
Are you going with that?
I'm not. No, I'm not going with that.
Okay.
Can I not go with anything?
No, pick one. When you got 2 in a row,
I'm gonna go with Kittle again. I'm going with Marcel Kittle. He's got the team. He's got the train. Obviously, he's got the form. And by the way, too. Well, I guess he lost time today. Now you start to get into some guys, that are never mind. Stage 5 is an uphill finish, and the GC will, these sprinters will now, in 2 days' time, will never stand a chance of having that yellow jersey.
Not after tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts for our audience at home?
I got nothing. I got it. My mom is coming in today. And this has nothing to do with the Tour de France. My mom's coming in for the 4th. Tomorrow's America's birthday. Happy birthday, America! And so I'm gonna hang up on this podcast and go pick up my mom. And my daughter's coming back today, Grace Armstrong, who's taken up cycling. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, I'm so proud of her.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
And again, send email stages@wedosport.com and send the link to all your friends that love cycling and want a good, unique insider look. Stagespodcast.com.